This is my sixth State of the Town address, and it will cover the year 2021. Unfortunately, 2021 was a continuation of 2020 in many ways. Remember at the end of 2020 when we had slogans such as "Good riddance" and 2021 will be such a much better year. Regrettably, mostly due to COVID, 2021 looked just like 2020 and in many cases was actually worse. Mask mandates, vaccination requirements. Does vaccination mean 2 shots, 1 shot, booster, 2 boosters? Still trying to always figure that out. Strong opinions on every side exists. And as a town simply attempting to deliver services to our citizens, it was very hard to sidestep all of the landmines. I want to provide the board some quick and basic numbers. At the end of 2021, the state's vaccination rate as a total was 75%, and the town is 72%. In 2020, we had 307 total cases of COVID. In 2021, it jumped to 1,364. The United States in 2020 had 20 million, and in 2021 had 55 million. And sadly, 346,000 deaths in the U.S. in 2020, 560,000 in 2021. You can see that in the town, we had 8 deaths due to COVID in 2020 and 13 in 2021. So when it came to COVID, in some ways, 2020 was a bad year, but 2021 was actually much worse. Local issues continued to abound, such as how do we keep employees from getting sick while still continuing to deliver services? As in 2020, a myriad of federal and state legislation was dizzying, and burnout was real for many employees. I would like to state the following and reiterate as to what I said last year. I would really like to commend our employees throughout this troubling time. The DPW continued to plow and pave. Fire and police continued to provide top-notch public safety. All of our inspectors never missed a beat. The COA continued to furnish lunches to our seniors, and the library remained as the go-to library in the region. Our schools continue to be in battleground for a difference between in-person learning versus remote learning. But our school administration, teachers, and students remained positive throughout. While everyone made the best of the situation, I would be lying if I didn't state that there were many sleepless nights. For example, I continued to remain late at night, stay awake at night wondering, what happens if most of our DPW department gets sick during a snowstorm? How do you continue to plow? We can't just call people in. Everyone is COVID fatigued at this point, and the reality is that sooner or later it's going to have to become a social norm that we're just going to have to live with it. It is what it is. 2021 did see some changes of note. First, this room, the Board of Selectmen meeting room, was named after the longest serving selectman in town history, Eldon Marrera. It is now called the Eldon Marrera Meeting Room. Fire Chief Kenny May, after dedicating over 30 years of service of his life to the service of the town, decided to retire. And as you met the chief earlier, I think we were in very good hands with the new chief, but we really wish Kenny well in his retirement. Library Director Alan Snoyenbus also retired, and her infectious smile and positivity will be missed, and we wish Laura new success in her new role as the director. While these changes occurred, one thing that did not change is the makeup of this board. Congratulations to Denise for winning re-election, and the town will continue to benefit from your dedication and leadership. Speaking of leadership, I think the selectmen showed great leadership at this past year's annual town meeting. The board was able to figure out a way to make sure that in an equitable and fair fashion that all employees received a raise after going through such a troubling time. And during this past year, the town continued to reinvest into itself, which is a key positive characteristic of any well-run organization. New sidewalks were still constructed, a facelift to War Memorial Park occurred, preservation of cemeteries continued to happen, and new vehicles for the school, the police, and the DPW were all purchased. The fire department was able to receive a needed new ambulance, or at least be approved for it. The town also approved a TIF agreement with a large warehouse to be constructed on Lincoln Street. And once full taxation begins, the town will actually realize well over $1 million per year in additional revenue. Historically, the town has been very fiscally conservative. The board is continuing to balance the needs of the departments while also considering the effects of the escalating tax bill. I want to drill down on the subject for just one moment. The town's average tax bill for FY 2022 is $6,199, but I want the board and the public to note that that's actually $200 less than the average municipal tax bill throughout the entire state. But what's even more impressive is that when I actually take out all western municipalities, so if I take Worcester West, include Worcester, but go Worcester, the average tax bill in the greater Boston area is $7,700. So our tax bill is actually $1,500 less per year than the average tax bill in eastern Massachusetts. And this is a much more indicative comparison. And the reason being, most western towns do not have full-service towns. Many of those small towns don't have a full police department or a fire department. They certainly don't all run COAs. Some of them just rely on state police. They have no local public safety. We run a full-service town, so I think it's a much better comparison. And quite frankly, I know government is becoming more expensive. Nobody's happy with the increase in their tax bills, but in comparison to our peers, we have done a very good job. When I started as your town administrator in 2013, the town only had $3,000 in excess levy capacity, meaning that the town was actually taxing all the way up to its maximum allowable levy limit. Remaining fiscally conservative, the town today has $2.5 million in allowable excess capacity. The message to that is that the board, again, has been very, very careful and conservative in the past. We have not taxed all the way up to our levy limit. At $2.5 million, West Bridgewater ranks 58th in the state, meaning that 300, because remember there's 351 municipalities, almost 300 municipalities out there have less levy capacity than the town of West Bridgewater. That's pretty impressive. And if you were able to base it on a percentage basis, which the DLS doesn't break out, I bet you we'd be in the top 10. Because when you have a small budget, 2.5 million is a pretty big number. You know, the cities that are ahead of us is like the city of Cambridge. Well, they've got $1 billion budget. So if they've got $3 million of excess capacity, that's peanuts in comparison to us. So without this financial discipline has allowed the town of West Bridgewater to remain so, be at this number. So while being fiscally conservative has its benefits, it is also has its downfalls. And I believe it is time for us to begin to put some of this excess capacity to the work. The town has grown and continues to grow. So for comparison's sake, I want to provide the following. From 2000 to 2020, the town grew 17% in population from census to census, while the state only grew at 13%. But we also grew a whopping 32% in households. That means we have more roads, we have more people to service. More streets for DPW and water to have to address, more services at the library and the COA, and more homes for the police and fire to service as well. In addition to those numbers, we currently have 90 3- and 4-bedroom homes being built on Scotland Street, a 54 and a 24-unit apartment complexes, respectively, already permitted and waiting for construction. There is a proposed large development on the Brockton border that, if comes to fruition, could add hundreds of more homes in that area. And that all doesn't take into effect the dozen or so new homes that are just built every single year under normal practice. When you take into account that the town is rich in farmland and open space, it is easy to see that another 30% increase in population of households is very likely. Words cannot truly capture the stress that is being added to our departments and to our schools with this population increase. The town is going to have to make some tough choices going forward. Do we continue to deliver first-class services? Understand that they will be costly. Or do we pull back on services in order to be able to save money? My recommendation to the board is that we move forward with continuing to deliver and expand on our services. While more households means more roads to plow and pave, our staffing has not grown accordingly. For example, in 2000, the highway and forestry departments had a total of 8 laborers combined. Today we have 9. In 2000, the building department generated $86,000 in total fees. Last year, it generated $215,000. It's already generated $143,000 this year and is on pace to potentially get to $300,000. The DPW needs additional help, and so does the building commissioner. The town added a police officer last year. And this year, we need to seriously consider taking advantage of federal programs in order to hire firefighters within the fire department. In your office, for example, you permit almost 100% more businesses than you did in 2000. And thanks to the 30% increase in population, Linda and Lorna also field countless more inquiries from residents. Yet your staffing is identical to what it was 22 years ago. At some time, we are going to have to add someone. The town's growth has also been haphazard. We need to desperately hire a full-time planner to assist the planning board, the zoning board of appeals, and the building commissioner. This person would also conduct an extensive review of our zoning bylaws because they have not been updated in decades. They really need to be reviewed. While stress is up, West Bridgewater continues to shine because of the excellence of our department heads and their respective staff. Yet we just simply cannot continue to try to get more with less. We have the capacity, we have the ability, and it's time that we address these needs. On a personal level, I will tell you that my biggest task and accomplishment this year was managing the daily grind of dealing with year 2 of COVID. I truly envy the day that we can just all do our jobs and not worry about trying to figure out and manage the nuance of a declared public health emergency. On a day-to-day basis, the staff in your office make sure that all licenses are handled, resident complaints are addressed, and the town continues to move in a positive direction. I really mean this when I say it. All 3 of you are personally connected to the town. You know a lot of people. Most people have your cell phones. And when you think of the minimum amount of complaints that you receive, hopefully it's an indication to the 3 of you as to what the work is being done in the office, so that way we can make sure all of those get handled. I remain in awe watching Lorna and Linda excel on a regular basis. In full transparency, there are a couple of areas that I wish I had still accomplished in 2021. I really want to get a healthcare opt-out program up and running. I need to revisit that again this year. And the second thing is that being a small town, I really want us to have a better direct conduit to our state delegation. Walter and Michelle, I need to meet with them more. We need to get them more involved. We need to be more involved with them because we are not taking advantage of every single program because we probably just aren't even aware of them. But that takes time, and the reality is 125, 150 emails per day, I just get mired in day-to-day activity. It's just very difficult to do. On a positive note, not a single union grievance reached the board. And in 9 years, it's one of my proudest moments because we've only had one grievance actually reach that level. We take great pride in trying to be fair and reasonable to all of our employees. And I think that our employees are also phenomenal in return. And that's why we have a good working relationship. I thank the board very much for your support in trusting me in this leadership. I would also like to take a moment to say thank you to the hundreds of volunteers in this town that really make the town tick. All the volunteer committee members and the volunteer organizations. They really are the real engine of this town. And lastly, while we turn the page in 2021, we are now going to gear up for the town's 200th birthday celebration in only a couple of weeks. I'm looking forward to it. I think it's really going to be an amazing and wonderful year. I genuinely believe that the town of West Bridgewater is an incredible town. Sincerely, I am so proud to work here, to work for this board, and to call West Bridgewater my adopted home. To the board, I thank you for your help and your guidance. I watch each one of you, individually and collectively, contribute countless of hours behind the scenes because I know how much you all really care and love this town. I know how hard all of you work. I feel privileged to work for this board. I know all of us feel very privileged to be part of the town of West Bridgewater. And thank you.